Chapter 3. At lunch, I sat at the table and stared at my vegetarian bologna sandwich. Most of the other kids were waiting in the hot food line. It was either macaroni and cheese day or tuna melt day. Or maybe it was both. I couldn't tell without looking at the menu, because all the cafeteria food smells the same. I looked around the lunchroom and spotted Frankie. He had just bought a milk and was laughing and talking with Katie Sperling and Kim Paulson, only the two most beautiful girls in the entire school. When Frankie smiles, he gets this huge dimple in his cheek. As he walked, he kept flashing the girls the big dimple, and man, was it working. They were following him to our table. I couldn't believe it. Katie Sperling and Kim Paulson were going to sit down with us. That is, until Robert Upchurch cut in front of them and took the seat across from me. "Hey, Hank, mind if I sit here?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. But it was too late. When Katie and Kim saw Robert, they swerved left. At least I think it was left. Maybe it was right. It's hard for me to keep track of directions. Anyway, they went down a totally different aisle and sat down with Ryan Shimizato and his friends. Robert isn't exactly a girl magnet. He has the neck the size of a pencil and always wears a starchy white shirt with a tie. That's right, I said a tie. Add to that the fact that he's the most boring person on the planet, and you can't blame the girls for picking another table. Frankie flopped down to me. "Thanks, Robert," he said. "Nice work." "What'd I do?" Robert asked. Poor kid, he really didn't have a clue. Robert just started third grade. Since the third graders and the fourth graders at my school eat lunch together, this was the first day he'd gotten a chance to sit with us. We really don't want him hanging around with us. But he lives in the same apartment building as Frankie, Ashley, and me, so he thinks he has the right to tag along everywhere. Frankie glanced at my sandwich and made a face. He's been making faces at my lunches ever since we were in preschool. "I see your mom's at it again," he said. "What's she calling this? Soy surprise?" "It's bologna," I told him. "Bologna and I go way back," said Frankie, "and this is no bologna." I don't know if you've had vegetarian bologna before, but I don't think you've ever had my mom's vegetarian bologna. She thinks she invented it, which proves she should keep her thoughts to herself. My mom's vegetarian bologna tastes nothing like you've ever put in your mouth. Let's just say it's round, ground, pinkish leaves of grass. Let's just say it's non-food. Ever since my mom took over Papa Pete's Deli, she has been experimenting like crazy with food. Unfortunately for me, my lunch is her laboratory. Vegetarian bologna is only one of her experiments. You haven't lived until you've tried her soy salami. Papa Pete says it's a crime what she does to salami. By the way, Papa Pete is my grandpa. He's the best. Sometimes I get the feeling that he's the only person who understands me. He never ever thinks I'm lazy or stupid. Actually, bologna is a very interesting word, Robert said through a mouthful of macaroni and cheese. Frankie and I looked at each other. You know how when you have a best friend, you and the other person often think the same thing at the same time? We were both thinking, somebody get me out of this conversation. What's especially interesting is that bologna contains a silent G, just like the silent K in knock or night, Robert went on. Robert knows everything. That's why he skipped second grade. I think it's great to know a lot of things. I just don't think you have to say them all the time. Like Robert will name all the James Bond movies in order, including the year they came out, even when no one asks him. And don't even start him on world capitals. He'll tell you the capital of Indonesia right in the middle of a dodgeball game. The other day he just looked at me and said, "The human body has enough iron to make one nail." He said it like it was a totally normal thing to say. "Robert," I said, "why don't you go sit with the third graders?" "They're not interested in what I have to say," he said. "We're not interested either," I said. "Why not?" he answered. "Spelling is a very challenging subject." "Challenging," I said. "That's the understatement of the century. I can't spell to save my life, and it really bothers me too." "I can't imagine not being able to spell," Robert said. "Doesn't it make you feel stupid?" "Robert, will you cut Zip a break?" said Frankie, giving him a noogie on the head. "Can't you see he's a troubled man?" What's wrong with you? Robert asked. Ms. Adolph is making us write an entire 5-paragraph essay, I answered. Neatness counts. Punctuation counts. Everything counts. Do you realize how impossible that is? Just then, Ashley slid onto the bench next to me and put her tray down. She had chosen both the macaroni and cheese and the tuna melt. Ashley likes variety. In everything. You should see her clothes. She covers them all with rhinestones, even her sneakers. She's got one pair with a family of dolphins swimming in the ocean, in blue and green rhinestones. She glues them all on herself. What's impossible? Asked Ashley. Spelling, I said. Spelling is hard, she agreed, but this is impossible. She picked up a cherry that was sitting on top of her fruit salad. She popped it into her mouth and ate it. Then her face got all twisted up and busy, like a chipmunk shelling an acorn. In no time she stuck out her tongue, and there was the cherry stem, tied in a perfect knot. Is Ashley Wong an amazing girl or what? Ashwina, that is so cool, said Frankie. Frankie is a nickname for everyone. He even calls my dad Mr. Z. No one else I know even talks to my father. Does nobody care about my problem? I said. Is anybody listening? My friend stopped eating and looked at me. How am I going to write 5 perfect paragraphs by next Monday when I can't get what I'm thinking about down on paper? I said, my handwriting looks like a chicken stepped in tar and ran across the page. If a chicken stepped in tar, it would get stuck and couldn't run anywhere, Robert pointed out. Shut up, Robert, we all said together. I put commas in the wrong places, I continued. My capital letters look weird. My lowercase letters look even weirder. My spelling. Well, we all know about my spelling. Take a breath, Zip, said Frankie. We'll figure it out. Hey, make friends with the dictionary. Let your fingers do the walking if you know what I'm talking about. Frankie is really good at school. He thinks math is easy. And, get this, he reads for fun. I wish I could do that. I wish it were easier for me to read a book. You sound just like my father, I said. He's always telling me to look up words in the dictionary. Suddenly, Frankie grabbed his chest and fell to the ground, flopping around like he was some kind of alien. He's cool enough to be able to do a thing like that in the lunchroom. Even Kate Sperling and Kim Paulson were laughing. Not at him either, but with him. That hurts, he screamed, comparing me to Silent Stan, the crossword puzzle man. That's another one of Frankie's nicknames for my dad. Frankie got up and sat back down at the table. Someone, please, what's a 4-letter word for a root vegetable? He said, doing his perfect imitation of my father working a crossword puzzle. We all cracked up. Milk came shooting out of Ashley's nose. It spewed all over her T-shirt, spraying the rhinestone self-portrait she had done. Drops of milk hung off of the purple stones she had used for the frames of her glasses. Does anyone have a napkin? Ashley asked. Here, take mine, I told her. My sandwich is never going to make it to my mouth anyway. Frankie climbed back onto the bench. Do me a favor, Zip. Don't ever tell me that I sound like your father again. Then don't bring up the dictionary again, I said. It's such a useless invention, at least for me. Don't tell that to Ms. Adolph, said Ashley. She's in love with dictionaries. They don't make any sense, I said. I can't spell words because I can't sound them out. So how am I going to find them in a dictionary if I can't spell them in the first place? Do you know my dictionary has 1,256 pages? Words get lost in there. Zip, you're forgetting to breathe. I know, Frankie. I am breathing. Frankie put his hand on my shoulder. Look, it's just an essay, my man. Maybe for you, I said. For me, it's torture. Frankie reached into his lunch bag and pulled out a package of ding-dongs. He took one for himself and gave one to me. Listen up, Zip, he said. We're supposed to write about what we did on our summer vacation, right? So you just write about what happened to you. You had an awesome summer vacation, going to Canada and to Niagara Falls and getting to steer the boat all by yourself when the captain fell overboard. Man, that's cool stuff. Ashley nearly gagged on her second cherry stem. That's not what you told me, she said. You told me your sister got seasick and barfed all over your plastic raincoat. Okay, okay. So sometimes I tell stories, but they're not lies or anything. It's just that I think the world needs to be entertained. I happen to be good at it. Like Papa Pete says, if you've got it, flaunt it. Flaunt. There's another word I can't spell. Out of nowhere came a hand bigger than an average hand, bigger than a tabletop. Then a head the size of Rhode Island appeared. Next came the smell of bad, bad breath, the kind that makes the gel in your hair lose its hold. That ding-dong is mine, Nick McKelty said as he smashed what was once my chocolate cake into his oversized mouth. I love these. Robert dove for cover under the table. Ashley shot milk again. Be my guest, I said. It was either that or have Nick the Tick pound my skull with his knuckles. Nick thinks that because he's the biggest guy in the fourth grade, everybody's lunch is his personal meal. We are his menu, and he just takes whatever he wants. Nick was looking for his second course. My instincts told me he was headed for Ashley's tuna melt. Nick, I said, yelling to catch his attention, you don't want to eat that. Like you're going to stop me, he said, flashing me a stupid grin. The ding-dong chocolate was wedged in the gap between his teeth, so it looked like he had 3 front teeth. Did you hear about the tuna they just caught off of Cape Cod that ate a license plate from a car in Ohio? I said to him, thinking fast. There was so much metal ground up inside him that by the time he got to the store, he didn't need a can. I pointed to Ashley's sandwich. That's him in there. You could almost hear the small wheels grinding inside his huge blonde head. I didn't want that pathetic sandwich anyway, he said. I've got to save my appetite for the Knicks game tonight. My dad's got tickets right next to the players' bench. Nick's father owns the bowling alley in our neighborhood, McKelty's Rock and Roll Bowl. Maybe that's why Nick the Tick thinks he has the right to act like a big shot all the time. All he does is brag, and none of it is ever true. Okay, like I said before, I tell stories sometimes too, but let's get one thing straight. My stories are for pure entertainment purposes. Nick's stories are to make him seem cool, which he's not, I might add. Like he says his father has the best seats for every sporting event in the United States of America. The truth is, mostly they watch the games on the TV at the bowling alley. That's what we call the McKelty factor. Truth times 100. In any case, Nick walked away. Ashley smiled at me. Thanks, Hank, she said. I felt proud I had saved her lunch. You are amazing, Zip, Frankie said. You have so much trouble with so many things, but never with your mouth. It's a brilliant mouth. I thought about that. If my brilliant mouth worked on Nick McKelty, why couldn't it work on Ms. Adolph? I took out a piece of paper and a pencil. I had a plan.